Two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Delusions of Grandeur. I'm your host, David Streggy, and today we are continuing our Ozploitation fest as we are going to continue with our interest in the world of Oz. As Frank L. Baum originally wrote a set of novels, originally starting with The Wizard of Oz and going up to a certain number of novels. And I guess in 1954, Walt Disney bought the rights from the L. Baum estate of most of the rest of. In fact, they bought the rest of the rights, the film rights, for the rest of the novels. And this particular film that we are going to be talking about is called Return to Oz. It was filmed in 1985. It is a British and American dark fantasy film, and I would have to say that this was an interesting period for Walt Disney, because they did films that were definitely darker than normal. I would have to say Something Wicked This Way Comes, The Watcher in the Woods are among some of those darker pictures, which Disney seemed to kind of gravitate towards. But this particular film is based on The Marvelous Land of Oz, which was written in 1904, and Ozma of Oz in 1907. Let me see what IMDb says about the film, though, before we go into our first impressions.
Okay.
The Return to Oz. Okay. Dorothy, saved from a psychiatric experiment by a mysterious girl, is somehow called back to Oz when a vain witch and the Gnome King destroy everything that makes the magical land beautiful. Very, very vague description. So,
Yeah.
but what is your first impression of this film? Was this a first time watch for you?
Yes. Well, 2 days ago I saw it for the first time, and yesterday once more with you. Although yesterday it was my internet connection wasn't very good, so it was a bit glitchy on my end. So I'm sorry if by now I don't remember every detail of what we are going to discuss. But yeah. I would say I really enjoyed this movie. You mentioned something about the genre being dark fantasy. As far as I saw, I didn't really think it was too dark, except maybe a few scenes here and there. It was.
For Disney, it was darker.
Oh,
To me, especially with the message that they try to portray now in this day and age.
ah,
They are a far cry from what they didn't used to care as much as
don't,
they do now. How sensitive people are.
don't
So,
get me started on that.
but
Uh,
well, that's something that we could probably get into, like maybe later on, like as an afterward or whatnot. But Disney in general, it's kind of just gone downhill.
it,
uh,
Pretty much, yeah. Out of all the more recent movies that they've made, one that I would point out as one I really enjoyed would be Maleficent from 2014.
Yeah,
But
that one goes back into the dark fantasy a little bit. So I'll give you that. Um, but in any case, so um, here we have, well, Dorothy is played by a very young Perusa Balk, and to me, this is definitely, to me, her first role that I ever remembered. And the thing is, she eventually became the psychotic teen witch in The Craft, which was a great '90s film, or early '90s a film for witches. It took witches to the extent where they weren't just flying on a broomstick. They were teenagers in high school, and they could manipulate powers for themselves. So
ooh,
to
that
me,
sounds interesting.
but here she is, a very young a girl. Um, her mother, not her mother, her aunt, her aunt and uncle, especially her aunt, I think, because apparently this is set sometime after the storm that happened in the original film. And
Yeah,
it appears that the uncle has broken his leg, and Auntie M, who I believe is played by the uh, beautiful Piper Laurie, which, if you know anything about horror films, she played the mother of uh, Carrie in the Stephen King movie Carrie. Um,
ooh.
so having her play Auntie M was kind of interesting because that was kind of an iconic role, where she was more of a uh, staunchly Christian woman who was set in her beliefs. Whereas as this one, she appears to need Dorothy focused, because there's farm work to be done, and she can't do it alone. My first impression of this is I wasn't really looking at the background of it all too much, but I remember the clockwork face of that machine, thinking, "Oh my God, electric shock," and then
Ooh.
the interesting aspects of the Gnome King and the claymation of the rock face creature that was apparently looking out for them. The Gump, the different characters that were involved here. She apparently her original friends she has not seen, and I thought that this was entertaining. I thought that it. I mean, I, as an adult, seeing it again, I noticed the things that were in her reality before she ended up in the storm, which brought her back to Oz. But I remembered her finding that key by Belinda's help or whatnot, and I remember the talking chicken. I just didn't fully remember everything until I had actually watched it again. And even you were commenting on me, saying things as I remembered them. So it was like it was a cool nostalgia moment, a moment to watch it again and remember the different things as well as I remembered them. So you could definitely tell that it was something I'd seen before.
Yeah. Well, that chicken was really hilarious, at least to me.
And she has a chicken with her. A chicken!
Yeah.
But
That guy really chickened out.
but what do you think about her Auntie M as a character? Do you like her? Does she seem like a decent character?
Well, I don't know how people saw those things back then when the movie was made, but I kind of got the impression that while she's maybe they did intend to portray her as if she really cared about Dorothy's well-being, but to me personally, she came off as if she mainly cared for Dorothy because she was useful to her. I got that impression because of what she said. You haven't slept. I can't repeat it word by word, but she said something like, "You haven't slept well for 6 months, and then you are." No help to me, something like that, uh, which kind of sounded insensitive and uncaring, in my opinion.
Well, unfortunately, at this point in time, um, and remember, the novels were written in 1904 and 1907.
Uh,
So at that point in time, if you were in a farming community, if you were like 3 or 4 years old, you were up early, like at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, to go and collect the eggs. And by 5 or 6 years old, you should have at least been able to milk a
oh,
cow. so,
well,
so to me, if you grew up on a farm, and I don't know what happened to her parents, I really don't. Um,
oh
uh,
yeah, that has not been mentioned as far as I remember.
but we know that she lives with her aunt and uncle, as far as we know. So she's grown up in this farm community with her aunt and uncle. And my assumption is that, you know, she ultimately is supposed to be helpful around the farm, or at least to be able to help her run the farm, since her uncle isn't in the best of condition, you know.
Yeah.
But so apparently the uncle is looking at a newspaper article for a guy who apparently has been able to be successful in uh, maybe helping with her sleep process, by electric shock therapy, it looks like. Although he kind of, although I mean, and I do like the fact that we do see Toto, uh, which is interesting. She tells Toto to go home, and they end up going on a carriage ride to go wherever this doctor is. Now, um, the doctor is played by Nicole Williamson, and his name is Dr. Worley. Um, but Dr. Worley, or Nicole Williamson, he also plays the Gnome King later on. And Jean Marsh,
Interesting.
Jean Marsh is the woman who plays Nurse Wilson, which is his helper, his assistant, and that would be eventually the woman who played Mumby.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So, but also to me, I felt like the guys who were wheeling the carts, um, who were the other assistants you saw at this asylum, so to speak, because that's what I would call it. I would call it an asylum of sorts.
Yeah.
Apparently, one of the guys who I guess one of the guys who played the guy who played the lead wheeler was also the gnome messenger, who I guess went by the name of Pons Mare. And then the Cowardly Lion was John Alexander, and he was also a wheeler. So, but I feel like the people that she saw in reality eventually played a part in the world of Oz.
Well, that was kind of the case in the first movie as well.
But apparently, and to me, I saw. What did you think about Dr. Worley as a character? Does he seem like he's a good doctor?
Well, at the beginning, he seemed rather mysterious. Like when I was watching it for the first time, I wasn't sure if he would turn out to be a good one or a bad one, but in the end, it turned out he wasn't really good as far as we got to know. I mean, there were those screaming voices heard of other patients. So I guess that means that he was bad news after all.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. I think he really believed in his experiments because from what I understand in the newspaper article, he was looking for subjects to experiment on. Okay, this was experimental therapy, basically, some form of it. And
Yeah.
to me, it's he really believed in what he thought he was able to do. It's just I don't think he factored in the storm and the electrical stuff, and I don't think they counted on the little girl who I think ended up being like a variation of Ozma of Oz, who came and took her to Oz.
Yes, she was played by the same girl, but yeah, whether they were the same character or not, I'm actually not sure.
But yeah, ultimately the storm happened, and the nurse Wilson, she was trying to go after her and try to get her to come back. I don't really think that she was trying to be mean at all, but because she had not been paying attention to where Dorothy was, I think that's why eventually what happened to her in the end happened to her in reality.
Wait, I'm sorry, what do you
Because
mean?
at the end of the movie, you actually see her locked up in
Yeah,
like one of those jail wagons.
yeah, but I didn't understand what you meant, why it happened.
Because she was supposed to be paying attention to where Dorothy's whereabouts were. She was the assistant, and when she
Ah,
went after her in the storm, she couldn't find her. So I think in the end, when when Dorothy like escaped or whatnot or ran off, um, and the doctor went in to try to save his equipment, he died in some fire, you know, and I think eventually she was blamed for Dorothy's disappearance.
possibly.
But that's like the end. So let us get let
Yeah,
us get
that was quite a jump.
let us get to the plot here. So, what did you think about that whole scenario where she was left alone in the room and her whole escape process, and then her whole jumping into the lake or river or stream or whatever? What did you think about that moment?
Well, it was definitely one of those moments that makes this movie, in my opinion, at least much more suspenseful than the original. I'm sorry. Uh, that was really cool, and I was curious how Dorothy was going to get back to Oz. So that was how apparently uh, it was pretty interesting.
Well, yeah, especially since she wakes up in a pond inside of a place where that chicken that she had on the ranch was with her. How the hell did that chicken get there?
Yeah, and actually, that's an interesting point because at the very end, from what I understood, it's kind of left up to our interpretation whether Oz is real or Dorothy's imagination after all. And while there are some things, as you mentioned, like she saw some things in reality and they somehow became a part of the land of Oz, which indicates it might be her imagination after all. But the truth is that at the very end, the chicken really wasn't at the farm anymore. And as we saw, the chicken apparently stayed in Oz, and it really wasn't at the farm anymore, which kind of implies that maybe it was real after all.
Well, yeah, because she ended up telling us Dorothy that uh, Belinda or whatnot,
Belina.
Belina.
Yeah.
She was actually voiced by Denise Breyer, which I thought I had heard that voice before. I'm not sure. Oh, I guess she was the voice of the junk lady in Labyrinth. And let's see, just seeing what else that she actually was in. Okay, so she was in a version of Gulliver's Travels in 1977. She,
Ooh.
she was Circe in Hercules from 1983. I think that was with Lou Ferrigno as Hercules. Um,
Ooh.
but I guess uh, besides being Belina, I guess to me she's known as the Junk Lady. uh, that shows up in Jim Henson's The Labyrinth. So the fact that Jim Henson is somewhat involved in this is kind of interesting. Or maybe it's not Jim Henson being involved. It's just um, maybe just that particular actress or whatnot, you know.
Yeah.
But what? Well, the screenplay was done by Walter Murch and Gil Dennis, and Dennis. Um, he did films like On My Own, Without Evidence, The Riders of the Purple Sage, The Man on Lincoln's Nose, a documentary sort, and I guess he wrote Walk the Line, which was the movie based on um, Johnny Cash eventually down the line. But um, what did we think about um, the Deadly Desert?
Well, it played a fairly small part in this story, but one thing I found myself thinking while watching that scene was that if, from what I remember, it said that if you touch the sand in that desert, you become sand or a rock or something like that. I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
yeah, I found myself thinking that Dorothy was rather brave the way she just started jumping over those stones as if it wasn't as dangerous as they said it was.
and I guess this was due partially to the world building that they're building, because in the original Wizard of Oz, we didn't get the fact that that Oz was surrounded by this desert, called the
Ooh.
Deadly Desert, and she's the one who told Valina, "Hey, don't just jump. This is the Deadly Desert, so let's just hop on these rocks." And I thought it was kind of interesting how they found a tree filled with lunch pails.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish we had those kind of trees here. What do you think?
Yeah, that would be interesting for sure.
Oh, what's in this one? A ham sandwich. Cool. Then I don't have to go to the store. I guess I guess sandwiches grow on trees.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something?
Don't pick the green ones. But ultimately, she comes across the supposed house, like you said, that had fallen apparently um, on the Wicked
Uh,
Witch of the West, if I remember
uh,
correctly.
East, I think.
East, Wicked Witch of the East, which she mentioned that this might have been Munchkin Land, you know,
Uh,
at one
yeah,
point
that
in
was.
time, and she found the what looked like the yellow brick road, and that's when the gnome messenger. That's what he's being called. The gnome messenger goes back to the gnome king, because he's just this like face in a rock face
uh, yeah,
that speaks, and we don't see the gnome king at all. We just hear his voice, and it's very
well, at
deep
that
and
point.
very growly, and this is the point where he says Dorothy Gale has found the yellow brick road, and she has a chicken. A chicken? What?
Yeah.
And and it's interesting that um, that we have that go on here, because eventually she finds her way walking into the Emerald City and finding that all of the characters of Oz, the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, um, and apparently these dancers with their heads like missing,
Oh yeah.
um, and various characters that you see that have been turned to stone, which is kind of interesting, because guess what? There is another series of novels that has a white witch turn people to stone, uh,
Ooh.
which is called the Chronicles of Narnia, with the lion, the witch, and the wardrobe.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And not only that, to talk about the story of Jason and the Argonauts, where he goes and cuts off the head of Medusa. And guess what Medusa is? She is a creature that has snakes in her hair, and you cannot have her. You cannot look into her eyes, or else she turns you to stone.
Yeah.
You know. So we have that kind of a creature. So it's similar to the type of turning to stone. Oh, and even in the Bible, if I remember correctly, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, Lot's wife becoming a pillar of salt when she turned and looked back at the town.
Correct. So these are various similarities that I feel like are similar to the act of turning one to a stone, or even or even similarly the story of King Midas, where he turns everything to gold. you know.
Yeah.
So there are various similarities because the Gnome King can also turn people to certain varieties of stone too, as we find out.
Yeah, although when he does it, they become something completely different. Not in this case, these dancers still had their. They were still kind of in the same shape. They were just petrified and without heads and with no king. When he would turn someone into an ornament, they would become a random item completely different from what they looked like.
Well, and it was shortly after she had realized that these characters were turned to stone that she came across these creatures called the Wheelers, which the first thing you heard was their wheels squealing. And apparently they're these people in punk punk costumes with what looks like helmets of some sort with like some cool ass masks, and they apparently travel by the wheels that are their hands and feet. you know
Yeah.
and they try to attack her or chase her down, and she ends up finding herself in an alleyway where she finds a keyhole where apparently the key that she was given opens, and inside what does she find?
Is that where she finds TikTok?
Yes,
Uh,
TikTok is apparently this metallized copper looking Tin Man looking like thing with wind up features on the back for his what was it? His action, his thinking, and what was it?
Actual thinking, maybe moving. I'm not sure. Uh,
Well, in any case, he
Actual
is called
thinking.
the Army of Oz.
Uh,
And
uh,
he sounds like this. He sounds like a Mexican or a Hispanic man, but he, I guess, is played by Michael Sundin. Which I'm just trying to see. He hasn't really played much. I guess he played in Forever Young as Peter, Um, I guess he played in a movie called Dream Child as a March Hare in 1985, and I guess he played in Lionheart as Bertram in 1987. So he hasn't, but I guess the voice of TikTok was Sean Barrett. And Sean Barrett, it looks like he was the voice of Urza in The Dark Crystal. So he was another character from a Jim. And he voiced a goblin in Labyrinth. So he was a regular character of the Jim Henson Productions. And I guess he voiced Rikia Gogul and Gabamaru in a anime series that went from 1990 to 1991 called Cyber City 808.
Ooh, cool.
Among other things. I guess it looks like he's played in quite a few things. I guess let's see, played in something called The Genie in 1953. Game of Danger as Willie in 1954. Oh, he played Petya Rostov in War and Peace in 1956. He was in a movie called Dunkirk as Frankie in 1958. A Cry from the Streets as Don in 1958. Sink the Bismarck, which was a war film from 1960 as Abel Seaman Brown. I have Sink the Bismarck, believe it or not. I just haven't seen it. And I guess it looks like he's just been in a lot of various things over time. Robin Hood Jr. as a sergeant. Lupin the Third, The Mystery of Mamo. As Zenigata, and he's the president of the 1996 manga dub. But he was the English version in the dub. So let's see. Dark Towers, Tales of the Unexpected. But yeah, he was known in The Dark Crystal. I guess he was in something called Odin as Belgel and a narrator. He was in Dominion Tank Police. Heard of that one? Oh, he was in Venus Wars, which was one that I recently picked up of Japanese anime. He was a dad, he was Simus, and he was a soldier in the English version. So that's kind of cool. I guess he was in another Lupin the Third movie called Bye Bye Lady Liberty as Zenigata and a pilot from 1989. Lupin the Third is like a lot. There's a lot in the Lupin the Third like world of Japanese animation. It's kind of like a staple of some of it, you know. So in any case, okay. So going on. So what? So TikTok, once wound up, helps kind of defeat the Wheelers, at least for the moment. And we realized that he actually, even though he looks like awkward as hell, he's able to swing his arms around and like completely scare them off, basically. And he takes the lead. I guess it's the lead Wheeler, and he's got the lead Wheeler's got like a really whiny voice, and I swear to God, his laugh that he has reminds me of someone who could possibly voice the Joker in Batman or something like that. You know, because he's got that like evilly like cackle. You know, what did
Yeah.
what do you think about that Wheeler?
Um, well, I don't know. I actually didn't have much of an opinion about him. I must say, uh, from what, as far as I saw, he wasn't really a very important character, just a minion of this.
Well, to me, I thought he was
Mm,
important because he was the first one that was. I mean, he was the one looking through the keyhole and said, "You've eventually got to come out." And then of course he's got the line right after Dorothy where she says, "Who is the Gnome King? Who is the Gnome King? Who is the Gnome King?" You know, like he doesn't really believe that she doesn't know who the Gnome King is. You know, everyone knows who the Gnome King is.
yeah.
You know, at least in the land of in the world of Oz. But ultimately, after that, they end up finding their way to what they think is the Emerald City Castle, and it just turns out that um, there is a very beautiful looking lady strumming a musical stringed instrument, and I guess told they're told by the Wheeler um, after much squealing um, that Mombi might know where her friends are, and they make him take them to the where Mombi evidently lives, and of course he escapes because he really doesn't want to be there. And they end up meeting one of the heads that Mombi apparently uses, because apparently when the Gnome King took over Oz, he gave the heads of the heads of all these like beautiful ladies and this castle in order to like be kind of like one of the people under his charge to make sure people if there is anyone who is breaking his laws uh, makes sure that he's got like it's she's like his second in command in a sense. Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
but he uses fear, I guess, as a way to rule. So to me, but in any case, what did you think of Mombi?
Well, one thing that really impressed me about her was the interior of her castle, those statues and all those ornaments she has. That was really beautiful to me, at least. She as a character, at first I didn't know what to expect from her. At first she seemed kind of nice, but then we found out that she wasn't quite what she seemed.
No, she was definitely not. And apparently, she took Dorothy and the chicken, Belina, up to I guess a tower, because she basically said that she would basically take her up and lock her in the tower until at least until her face was pretty enough for her to take her head, basically,
Yeah,
because
that
evidently
was.
she collects pretty faces.
Mm, Indeed, that was actually one of the darker moments of the movie.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, but up there in that tower room, she finds a character that seems to at first want to call her mother. Uh, uh,
Uh, yeah, Jack Pumpkinhead.
yep, Jack the Pumpkinhead, and I guess uh, he was built to, I guess, scare Mombi, but at first she was scared, and I guess then she got angry because she's got a terrible temper, and she basically tore him apart and left him there to apparently die or do whatever pumpkin heads tend to do when they're not put together. But I guess she puts him together, and I guess he helps her find out that there's this powder of life in one of the heads in Mombi's head chamber.
Uh, yeah, so that's how they put Gump together.
And what is gump? It looks like they put like palm leaves together, tied together on a sofa with a broom for a tail, and it's the head of what they call a gump, which in the English language a gump is like a foolish person. But in here he kind of looks like a moose head. And once he comes to life, I guess he talks.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about the Gump as a character?
Well, he was pretty cool. He was the one who helped them escape from that castle. And yeah, he was kind of helping them transport from one location to another, from what I remember.
Well,
Mm.
let's see. I guess Lyle Conway was the voice of the Gump, but I guess Lyle is more or less a special effects person in reality. So I guess he worked on the Dark Crystal. Um, he was the creature design and fabrication supervisor on the Skeksis, Agra, and Urskex. But I guess he was the creature effects supervisor on the film Dream Child in 1986. I guess.
Ooh.
Um, which and then I guess he was the creature effects supervisor on a movie called Link. He was the ape designer and creator of the TV movie The Murders in the Rue Morgue. Red Crow and the Ghost Ship, a TV movie. He was behind the animatronics on that. On the 1988 The Blob, he was the Blob creature effects designer and creator for the creature. He was on the Blob effects crew. He was the painter from the Rob Bottin studio in the movie Deep Rising, and in 2009, he was the sculptor from Jim Henson's Creature Shop in Where the Wild Things Are. So, so this is the guy who voiced the Gump. But the guy who I guess was the guy behind working the Gump, the movements and all that jazz. I guess his name was Stephen Norrington, and I guess he was a special effects person too. He worked as a on the creature effects crew of Aliens from 1986,
Ooh,
on
nice.
Young Sherlock Holmes from 1985. He worked with Jim Henson on The Storyteller, which was a TV series. He was a special creatures designer from the Jim Henson Creature Shop for a time on The Storyteller. So some of these people are some of the so I do actually think that Jim Henson Creature Shop is somewhat involved behind this film with all these people that like worked in Jim Henson Productions. You know, he has involvement in this film, so
Yeah.
I think that's kind of cool. So ultimately, Mombi wakes up. Dorothy Gale.
Uh, yeah, that was, in my opinion, one of the kind of scary moments in the movie, at least for children who are supposedly the target audience for the movie.
And ultimately, after that, they end up actually getting the Gump to fly them out, and she sends her. She goes down, wakes up her wheelers, and are like, "Don't come back until you you have the chicken and Dorothy. Go now." But eventually, they end up flying over the deadly desert, and Jack the Pumpkinhead is kind of funny, um, because he doesn't quite get onto the sofa in time, so he's flailing his arms around, and once they get to a certain point out over the deadly desert, I guess the whole thing kind of breaks, and uh, they all end up falling, and his head, Jack's head, ends up
Uh,
floating, and she's like, "I'm sorry, Mom."
and then, from what I remember, his head ends up falling upside down.
Well, yeah, and he's like, "Why are you all standing on your heads?"
Yeah.
But it's at this point when we don't realize that Belina has actually fallen inside of Jack's head, um, in this whole process, you know. So,
Yeah, it comes in handy later on.
oh yeah, definitely. But it's at this point where they fall onto the mountain, which turns out to be the Gnome King's mountain. And the Gnome King hears the noise, and he sends his gnome messenger up there. Well, I actually find this part kind of funny because the Gnome King asks him what that noise is, and he's like, "I don't know." Well, go find out.
Yeah.
And he's so he comes back with the news that Dorothy has come back and is there with her group of friends, but there's no sign of the chicken. So he's like, "Good." So that's when he actually goes up and meets her. I guess we see him for a little bit for the first time. He's just this face in this rock, kind of, you know. And
Yeah.
she basically tells him she's here for her friends, and he's like, "Well, okay. Um, what are you willing to do if I don't give your friend back, or this and that?" And she's like, well, then I guess we'll take it, him from you by force. And that's when he laughs, and the ground cracks open, and she starts falling through his caverns of rocks, which kind of reminds me of like when Alice falls into the well from or falls down into Wonderland. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because when you see anything with Alice in Wonderland, there's always a moment where she just falls and floats and sees everything from Wonderland or whatnot. And that just reminds me of that for some reason. And you almost expect like the doorknob to show up speaking to Alice or something like that, you know?
Yeah, I do see the similarities.
But ultimately, her and her friends end up in this cavernous cave where we finally get to see what the Gnome King looks like, and he's not exactly he doesn't exactly look like the rock biter from the Never-Ending Story, but he's made of rock, and he's got like a rock crown, and he's got all these jewels on his fingers and whatnot. And he looks like a little bit like royalty, you know, and he's got like a beard, so he's very chiseled. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
I
what do you think about the whole idea that he offers them this game of going in, having three guesses to have the chance to, you know, find their friends?
Well, at first I thought that he might not be a bad guy after all when he mentioned the whole thing about the emeralds being his to begin with before they were taken away to build the Emerald City and so on. So his motives kind of seemed understandable at that point and made we think at first that he might turn out to be a good guy after all, but then he turned out to be a rather tricky one, precisely with what you said. When he realized that they weren't those who stole his emeralds originally, instead of just releasing their friends and letting them go, he forced them to play this game, and he kind of manipulated them into thinking that the game wasn't dangerous when in fact it was.
Well, yes, but also while she was falling through the cavernous stuff, she also said something about the fact that he has so much. And you know, it points to a possible greedy angle of the Gnome King, whereas
Yeah.
some people reach for too much, you know, and she I think that Dorothy, even that young, understands that you know, maybe the stones were might have been his to begin with. That doesn't mean take more than your fair share, you know.
Yeah. I guess.
And I
Uh,
guess he has the ability to manipulate uh, everything because what in as he put it, because before it became her turn, because when they first arrived, she saw the Scarecrow, and I guess the Scarecrow disappeared, and I guess he turned him into to an ornament. But for them, he gave them choices, and he wanted to play with them a little bit. You know, he he was a little bit of a tricky character.
Definitely.
But uh, one of the things he said he had was right before it was Dorothy's turn, because apparently TikTok had a trick up his sleeve too.
Um,
He acted like his thinking had stopped.
yeah.
When it was his turn and it was his final choice, I guess. He chose to act like his stuff had stopped. And I guess the gnome messenger came and told him this, and I guess it became Dorothy's turn. But I guess this is where he told her about, aren't you forgetting something? The ruby slippers. And he showed her that they are on his feet. And he's like, how do you think I was able to turn everyone to stone and things like that? You know, I could send you home. All I have to do is just click my heels and say there's no place like home.
Yeah.
What did you think about that for a moment? I mean, the fact that he gave her that choice.
uh, well, I guess he was some kind of not quite, I don't know, not quite human being if he thought that she would make such a selfish choice so easily to just forget the whole thing and
Well, yeah,
leave the others up to their fate.
and it seems like he was just fine with having the others become part of his collection, so to speak. Uh,
That was actually his plan, from what I understood, because he didn't think they would manage to make it out of there.
no, he did not. So he sent Dorothy. Well, Dorothy made the choice of going into the collection room, and she comes across TikTok, and he basically tells her that I have one more choice, and I just chose to pretend that my thinking had stopped. And he told her what ones he had already touched. So
Yeah,
it was a matter of elimination or a process of elimination to figure out what happened, and then she chose something green, and the first thing that she chose uh, turned into the
the
Scarecrow.
Scarecrow. Yeah.
Now, what did you think about the Scarecrow as a character?
Well, one thing I noticed was that he looked much different from what he looked like in the original movie, and not only him, the others as well, the Tin Man, and especially the Cowardly Lion, like all the characters, got new designs in this movie, and
Did you like the different designs, or did you think that the original were better?
Well, I kind of liked both, but maybe I would say that the ones in this movie were better because I think these ones go more with the idea of what the characters were supposed to be. Like the Cowardly Lion is supposed to be a lion, and in the first one, he had a much more anthropomorphic appearance, and in this one, he looked more like an actual lion, which is why I think the designs in this movie are more consistent with the idea of what each character should be.
I do think I like the original Tin Man though. Well, I wouldn't say the original. I would say I like the design of the Tin Man in the 1939 version. I have not seen the silent film version, so I can't really say whether I like them or not.
Yeah.
Because the Wizard of Oz, the one that we know and love, is not the original Wizard of Oz. To be honest,
Well,
it,
yeah, actually, you're right.
but it is the one that people go to, the one that people remember, the one that even the modern, I think even today, the modern world actually appreciates. Even as time goes on, I think it is kind of a classic, in its own right, and it holds the test of time to me, because it was it was something of a feat to create, the story involved in it. And yeah, it was a musical, but you know, it the story has been changed over time, and this is one of those I think this is one of my favorite adaptations of the Oz story. So um, it was definitely unique to the Oz world. But that being said, what did you think about the part where um, I guess the Gnome King realized that she had figured out the stone in which to say the words Oz on? uh, what did you think about uh, the part where she found Jack the pumpkin head behind one of these emerald objects and whatnot? In fact, it was the last object before everything started to fall. When he came up from the ground, and what did you think about that huge, gigantic head that he came up as, that Stonehenge looking thing?
Well, it was definitely pretty well done. He looked rather threatening, kind of like the biggest boss to beat in a game or something like that. uh,
Well, yeah, he first he grabbed the sofa, and he was like, "Let me eat the sofa." And so he grabbed the sofa, and they grabbed the Gump's head, and they were able to grab him off of the sofa before he ate it, and then he grabbed Jack, turned him upside down. I guess his top fell out, and guess what else?
the chicken. No, the chicken was inside, and she laid an egg into the no king's mouth.
Well, yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. How it's like one of those machines where you stick a coin in and it just goes around and around and around to the middle of a hole or whatnot. Have you seen those before?
Probably, yeah.
Well, in any case, the egg, you see it like roll around in the pumpkin's head, and suddenly it drops, and you see it drop, and you see the expression on his face, and he's like, he looks up at them, and he's like, "An egg? Don't you know that that eggs are poison to gnomes?"
Oh, yeah.
And
That
then
was.
and then all of the here's the thing. Here's the thing. I don't know if this was intentional, But all of these other gnome-looking gargoyle-looking claymation things, did you happen to notice that Casper's friends, the ghosts, showed up at one point?
In this movie,
Yeah, as some of the as some of the gnomes.
no, I didn't notice that. When did they appear?
They appeared like right after when they were starting to say poison, and you saw them in the background. I swear to God, I swear to God, Stretch and Stinky were there.
Interesting. I'm sorry I failed to notice that.
But I thought that was kind of interesting. And to me, when they first flew out from Mombi's lair, I almost expected to see the Addams Family graveyard, like right underneath where they were flying. I don't know why, but I was thinking, wait a minute, that almost looks like it could be the Addams Family graveyard as they were flying out. But in any case, that's just the feeling that I got. It's like different things reminded me of certain things, and to me, I think I've heard someone say that before. That one of the gargoyles they looked like some of the Casper ghosts from even though the movie Casper was filmed later in the 90s. You know, the cartoon was before this, so
Yeah, that maybe there was a connection after all.
I just feel like those creatures are eventually what eventually became the design for Stretch and Stinky to me.
Possibly.
I feel like to me there's a possible connection,
Who
but
knows?
ultimately we get the whole poison poison scene where all of these gnomes or these creatures start to melt and the thing is it's more of a crumbling melt but to me it's almost as if Dorothy had thrown water on the witch in the original and she melted. Well, the egg fell into the throat of this gnome and he melted. So
Yeah, although it kind of left me wondering if there was only one egg and he was the one who swallowed it, then what was it that killed the others?
I think that because he was connected magically to the others.
Maybe.
Like if you kill the head gnome, then they're all like connected, like the Borg.
Possibly that could be it.
But in any case, after this happens, I guess um, she gets the ruby slippers from the rubble. She puts them on, and she basically wishes everything back to normal. And they end up like in some grassy knoll, not too far from the Emerald City. So does Mombi in her because I forgot to mention that Mombi ended up coming to try to warn the Gnome King about
Uh,
her coming and said probably to save face, and
yeah,
she ended up being jailed herself because he blamed her for coming and the fact that I think she wanted him to know that the chicken was along with, I guess.
Yeah.
And I like when she arrives and he makes her go like bow to the ground, and then he's like lower,
Oh.
lower.
Yeah, practically lower than she physically could.
Yeah, but basically he when Dorothy finds out the Rock, he basically gets mad at her for some reason, and like magically puts her in like some kind of a jail thing, jail like barred cell or something like that, where she can't really get out of it. And I guess Dorothy wished her magic away, and I guess we get the moment where we see the Tin Man come alive, the Cowardly Lion come alive, the ladies who are dancing, they get their heads back, and we get this whole scene of people in this royal room on their way to like a celebration of some sort, where Ozma of Oz, who was that little girl that she'd seen in the mirror, or that's one thing thing I forgot to say. In Mombi's home, she saw her reflection like a ghost, and I think because she saw her, it's like she was helping her, you know.
Mm, yeah.
But I guess Belina, she chooses to stay in Oz. She's like, fuck that that dingy old barn. I like it better here. I like it that I can talk. You know,
Yeah, you really can't blame her for that.
no, but I guess she Ozma tells her that she's going to give her this like magic mirror, so that whenever she looks back at the reflection, she can come back whenever she wants to visit.
Yeah.
You know, but I guess we see TikTok. He's all shiny and shit. He's not so rusted anymore. He kind of looks like C3PO after he's been shined.
Nice one.
Uh,
Yeah.
and everything's all gravy again. So, what do you think about this whole scenery of her making sure that everyone was back to normal? Do you think that everything seemed to be wrapped up like really quickly, or what do you think?
Well, it seemed more or less fine to me. I was just confused about. I was left wondering what happened to the character of the Wizard of Oz from the original movie. Like, apparently, he's at the end of the first movie. Uh, balloon was blown away or something like that,
Yep,
from what I remember.
it was
And
blown away, and I don't think he was able to return. And I think in these stories, it was the Scarecrow um, who ultimately became the leader of Oz after Dorothy left. Um, and as we know, we find out that it's very possible that Hank or Hunk was Dorothy's intended lover like after a while, you know. So to although that didn't seem to take precedence here, we didn't see hide nor hair of the three characters that were in the original, well, at least in the 1939 film, where they
yeah,
portrayed the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion. But I imagine that it was the Scarecrow. Remember, we saw the Scarecrow in this movie too, and he had a crown on his head.
Oh, it did. Well, it was said in the first movie that he had become the next king, I think, and in this one it was mentioned as well, I think.
Yep. So ultimately, Ozma is next in line to succession to Oz, I guess, and that is who ultimately, I guess, brought her back to Oz by sending the key through the storm. Well, not through the storm, but somehow the key. Oh yeah, she saw a shooting star. Um, Dorothy did, like the night before, because
Uh,
she went to bed and saw a shooting star. And then the next morning, that's when Belina found the key for her.
oh yeah, yeah, good point.
So, ultimately, what did you think about the movie at the end of the day? Did you were you entertained? Did you enjoy it? Will you ever watch it again down the road?
I probably will. Yeah, it was really good. At least I would even say that I enjoyed it a bit better than the 1939 one because this one, in my opinion, at least, it was a bit more action-packed, more suspenseful than the first one. So that's why I enjoyed it better.
Huh. I guess there's an alternative version of this. Apparently, a bootleg of a longer work in progress version has circulated among fans. The difference between this and the released theatrical cut is as follows: there is no musical score except during the climactic scene in the ornament room. Aunt M's role is slightly longer and more sympathetic. When telling Dorothy it's past 1 in the morning, she gently pretends to paint Dorothy's face. Later, she comments that Uncle Henry's leg is really mended, but his spirit is broken. Uncle Henry and the newspaper clipping of Dr. Worley do not appear at the beginning. Instead, we see an alternate scene with a different clipping about Dorothy surviving the tornado. When Dorothy and Aunt Em arrive at the clinic, they are greeted by Nurse Wilson and Dr. Worley, who mistakenly call her Dottie. Ozma's voice is different, revealing she was dubbed in the finished film. Ozma and Dorothy run through the house a bit more before being seen by Nurse Wilson. When Dorothy and Belina first come to Oz, several times a blue screen and soundstage can be seen in the background, as visual effects had not yet been completed. Also, Belina, TikTok, and the Gump all have different voices, but Jack Pumpkinhead's remains the same. There are no visual effects for the scene when the Gnome Messenger first alerts the Gnome King of Dorothy's return. It is simply a shot of Pond's mare making faces as he reads the line, and Nicole Williams' off-screen and unaltered voice responding. Strangely enough, for the second scene, when the Gnome Messenger says she's on her way to the Emerald City, the claymation has been finished, but Williamson's voice is still unaltered. Ozma's ghostly figure in Mombi's house does not appear, so when Mombi says there's no one left who even remembers who you are, she is talking to no one. The scene of our heroes landing on the Gnome King's mountain is extended. Jack, unaware that his head it's on upside down, continues to comment about the sky, how the sky is beneath the land, as Dorothy goes to fix him. Belina remembers how the Gnome King seems to hate chickens, and Dorothy wonders what to do with her. This explains why it is that Belina is hiding inside Jack's head in the next scene. The following scene of the Gnome Messenger and the Gnome King again features no claymation of any kind, and Williamson's voice is unaltered, which continues in the next scene when the claymation's face appears on the outside of the mountain. When the Wheelers return to the King's Mountain and then of her beating the Wheelers and leading them to the underground tunnel, which we later see her traveling in. The scene of Dorothy eating the rock cake is extended, and she pretends to offer some to Jack, but is really feeding Belina inside his head. When TikTok is restored, he greets the Scarecrow, Your Majesty, before telling Dorothy his thinking must have run down. The most notable extended end scene is the celebration in the Emerald City. The Victory March is extended and more characters can be seen. Just as Dorothy is about to recrown the Scarecrow, he comments that being king is too difficult for him, and instead the characters rally Dorothy to be their queen. The Tin Man actually speaks during this scene. Dorothy explains that she could never leave her family in Kansas and comments that Toto always believed her story. Ozma then appears. Music plays over the scene, which is different from the finished film, and the mirror effect is not completed. After being reunited with Aunt Em and Uncle Henry, the constable, played by Bruce Boa, on a horse buggy, rides by and is happy that Dorothy's been found, but asks about the other one, presumably Ozma. Uncle Henry and Aunt Em comment that she hasn't been found, and so the search will continue upriver. As the buggy drives off is when Dorothy sees Nurse Wilson incarcerated in the back. There are no credits, so the final shot of Dorothy playing with Toto on the farm goes on for about a minute.
Wow. I didn't know about that version.
Neither did I. That's new to me. So hearing that there is a sort of a work print out there, I almost wish that I could find a copy of the work print of Return to Oz. Yeah, just to see this this unfinished copy.
It would definitely be interesting to see.
So in any case, favorites. Well, actually, the music in this film. What did you think about it?
Mm. Well, I remember this movie had much less music than the original, well, than the 1939 one. Uh,
Well, it looks like the music was done by David Shire. And I guess he did he was on the music department of the original taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, Saturday Night Fever, Short Circuit, and Zodiac, um, eventually in 2007. But I guess, let's see, looking, I guess he did quite a few. Oh, he was the conductor on the 1975 The Hindenburg. He was a conductor on All the President's Men. Let's see. He was part of the Tales of the Unexpected TV series of 8 episodes. He was a composer of some unused music in Apocalypse Now. I guess he was the music adapter for The World According to Garp, which was Robin Williams' first movie in 1982.
Ooh.
And I guess he was a conductor that was uncredited in the Care Bears movie. I guess he was a conductor on the 1988. He was uncredited, and an orchestrator on the 1988 baboon horror movie called Monkey Shines. Other than that, that's pretty much the musician behind the Return to Oz. So, yeah. Favorite scenes. What are your favorite scenes be?
Well, I think in this movie I would go with the scene in Princess Wambi's castle because that was to me at least one of the most artistic scenes in the movie where we see all these beautiful ornaments and things, and I think. That's one part where they had to put a lot of creativity into what they did, and it looked really great. So I think I would go with that one.
I would have to say I like the Wheelers for some reason, especially now, having seen the fact that when she's in the asylum, you see the two of the Wheelers wheeling this cart that she's on, and you can hear the wheels squealing. And then when you actually see the Wheelers themselves, you hear the same squealing of the wheels, and it's like I love the interpretation that they did of the sounds. I mean, you hear them wheeling the food cart down the hallway, and you hear the squealing of the wheels. So anytime I hear squealing of wheels, I I think beware the Wheelers.
Nice one.
To me that was kind of I thought that they were very creative characters for
Definitely.
for the time. I mean, their masks were somewhat like Kabuki Man-ish, but have you ever heard of Kabuki Man?
I may have heard that name somewhere, but I don't really know much about it.
Well, there is a movie called Sergeant Kabuki Man that is in the Trauma universe. It is a trauma film, if you've ever heard of Trauma.
I
Uh,
have heard, yeah.
Trauma is the company put forward by Lloyd Kaufman. I'm not sure if it's directed by him, but it is certainly one of their main catalog films. But to me, it looked similar to like a Japanese design of the mask that they wore, the metal mask looking thing that they had over their face. Before it looked like they had a crop duster looking helmet.
Yeah.
Like the old Air Force men of like 1940, like the World War One or World War Two, the flapping helmet.
Yeah.
So, which I believe the original helmets the Air Forcemen wore were in fact leather. So, to me, that's kind of like a steampunk look. So, in any case, other than my favorites besides the Wheelers, um, I liked some of the moments with Jack, and I liked some of the moments with Belina too. But Belina, when they came across the headless women, she was like, "Well, someone lost their heads."
Yeah, she was definitely one of the funniest ones.
Yeah. So she definitely added character to everything, Um, and Jack, when he said, "Why are you? Why is everyone standing on their heads?" that was funny to me, and it is a memorable moment because his head lands upside down, and he's like, so.
Indeed.
But the Gump when he first comes alive, I like that moment. Um, and I guess like that whole scene when the Gnome King, where the egg falls into the Gnome King's
Oh,
throat, and all his goons just end up saying poison, poison. That whole
yeah.
claymation scene.
When we get to find out why he had a problem with the chicken in the first place.
Well, yeah, and when his no messenger first tells him about the chicken, he's like, "What? A chicken?" I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I've never never seen a movie that had any problem with a chicken as much as this one.
Probably, yeah. I can't think of one either.
But in any case, um, I think that's all, unless you can think of anything else. I mean, other than the fact that when they came back from the Gnome King's collection, TikTok wasn't along, and I guess we didn't notice how this happened, but apparently a green medal ended up on the Gump's antlers, and so I guess he came back after all. So
Mm. Yeah, that must have been one hell of a lucky coincidence.
yeah, you're telling me. And the fact that you see the nurse Wilson at the end when Dorothy wakes up, um, apparently Nurse Wilson has been incarcerated for some reason. Maybe for not looking out for her or something like that. But I also like the whole line where um, Mombi is actually in her incarcerated cell in that Emerald City of Oz parade, and she has been told that her magic has been taken from her, and a witch without her magic is nothing at all, really. You know, so
Yeah.
and she's like, no, indeed, or some shit like that. So, in any case, thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen, and if you've been following along, this is a childhood favorite. It's not. I'm not sure I'm sure where I would put this because it is still a favorite. It's just I'm not sure where I would stick it on my list of favorite films. It is a good film. It is a very good film in the Oz universe. So I thought since I want. I had asked my friend Boris here if he had seen The Wizard of Oz, and he said many years ago, and whatnot. And I thought it was a good return to it, even though we were returning to Oz this week. So,
Yeah.
which we will be returning to it again next week with another Disney film called Oz the Great and Powerful. So. That is a relatively newer film, but it kind of shows us a little bit of like how the wizard got involved with, like his version of the story, I guess. So that will be interesting. And then after that, we'll check out Tin Man, which was a mini series um, in that the Sci-Fi Channel adapted into a three-part miniseries. So hopefully you've
Cool.
enjoyed our discussion. I've enjoyed delving into the Oz universe again. It's entertaining because there's a lot. Oh, and there is one movie that is connected to Oz that I forgot about. There's a movie called Inkheart. Have
Oh,
you ever heard of it? It's actually based on a book series, and they never had anything. And I know that there were more books to that, and I'm not sure, but it mentioned um, Dorothy, I guess, in there, and
oh,
we should check it out somewhere along the way here, so that we can uh, put it along with this whole Ozploitation uh, look at. But it's a different book series than the Bomb series, so I thought that it was unique to have Dorothy involved with it, you know. So,
indeed.
but in any case, like, share, and subscribe. Hopefully, you have a great day, evening, or morning wherever you are, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week. Thank you all.